In this video, I'm going to talk to you about how to have your biggest year in 2026 as an HVAC company. Look, most owners wait until the year begins to figure things out, and by then it's already a little too late. The companies that win play early and they play intentionally. I'm going to walk you through how I think about revenue goals, marketing budgets, team structure, and then the numbers you actually need to track if you're going to scale without having chaos inside of your business. This is in theory, this is how I build a plan that actually works in the real world. Now, let me ask you this. Why 2026 needs to be planned right now? Look, if you want 2026 to be a big year, you have to start planning today, right now. Not in January, not in February, not after you have a slow month, but right now before things break. Look, growth is not going to happen by accident. You're not going to get rich by mistake. It happens when you give yourself enough when you give yourself to build enough time to build the foundation correctly. Most HVAC companies, they operate reactively, and I don't want that to be you. Here's what you need to do and to avoid what they do. Most HVAC companies are operating reactively. They hire when they're overwhelmed, they spend on marketing when they're slow, and they fix problems when they've already occurred and they've already cost them a bunch of money. That's why most people get stuck. Here, let's do this here. Let's identify what constraints could happen as you go into 2026. Before you set any revenue goal, you have to identify that those things that are going to slow you down. I've seen way too many companies with having, a great call volume, unlimited leads, but are short on installers and they can't find them. And I've seen companies that have, and I've also seen companies that have great installers, but no calls on the board to back it up, right? So your constraints, there's levels, right? At 2 million are not going to be the same at 7 million. Most HVAC companies' constraints are one of three things, right? It's either labor, lead flow, or cash flow. There's no point in setting a huge goal if you just don't have the capacity to be able to fulfill on it. And there's no point on spending marketing if for some reason your CSRs are not answering the phone correctly and they're not booking the appointments. And there's also no point in growing fast if you just don't have the cash to support the growth, because it is going to be required. Look, if you don't identify the constraint first, the goals are not even going to matter. Let me talk to you about something that's very, very important. Let's talk about your revenue goals and your monthly run rate math, okay? So once you understand the constraints, what things are going to slow you down, and you identify that, the next thing I really want to focus on is how do we create a real revenue goal? And the way that I want you to think about it is, a lot of people think about it yearly and this huge number, right? So I'm going to dissect and we're going to break it down into smaller chunks. So let's say that your goal for 2026 is $2 million, okay? Then just follow along with me. That's roughly $166,000 a month. If you have a bigger goal, and let's say it's 5 million, that's roughly $416,000 a month. So here's what we'll do. We'll take that annual goal and then we'll divide it by 12. Then what we'll do from that point is that we'll divide that by 4. We'll break that into weekly numbers. And I want to ask you this, okay? I want you to ask yourself, what actually is required in terms of installs, appointments, and in staff? And in some cases, doing this can be a little bit uncomfortable, but this is where the clarity is going to come from, by breaking these numbers down and looking at it as a realistic thing. Let me show you something that's super important here. I want to show you how to create an effective marketing budget. It all starts after you've created a clear revenue target. So for example, we talked about, hey, you want to do $2 million in revenue for the year? Excellent. Here's what we're going to need. We're going to need to allocate 10% of that marketing. We're going to need to allocate 10% of the revenue towards marketing. So that's going to equal $200,000 for the year. If you divide the $200,000 by 12, what's going to happen is going to give you a clearly monthly investment for consistency that you're going to be able to invest back into whatever channels of marketing you prefer. I 100% prefer lead generation rather than like traditional billboards or SEO, just on those ends, right? So look, most owners never put money aside for marketing, and that's where they struggle to understand, well, how can I if I have a $2 million target, how can I put 10% of it if I don't have it? Okay, here's the best way to do it. I've done this, and a lot of people that I work with do this as well. What I did is I bank with Chase. Whoever you bank with, whatever local bank you bank with, I went out and I got a business credit card under the business. At first, they approved me for 20 grand, and what I did is I used that card, and I only used it for marketing, so ad spend. And look, before the month ended, what I would do is after everything was said and done, I sold all the systems that I sold, what I did is I went out and I used that card, and I never carried debt. So I went out, let's say that I sold 200 grand or 300 grand for that month. Whatever amount of money I sold, I come back, and whatever money I use for marketing, I pay it back before the month ends, because the goal is to never carry debt, and to the next month, always pay it off. And I want you to stop thinking of marketing as an expense. Marketing is not an expense when you make revenue. I want you to start thinking of it as an investment, because that's really what it is for your business if done correctly. The next topic I want to talk to you about is your organization chart, and I want you to build it for the target that you're going to be accomplishing rather than where your company is today. Look, most owners build their organization charts based on their current reality, and I think that could be a mistake because it'll hinder you from growth. You need to build your org chart for where you're going rather than where you are. If your goal is 2 million, the structure needs to support that level of volume. If everything still runs through you, you don't really have a company, you have a job. And I'm sorry to say that, but it's the truth. And look, at some point, you have to stop doing and you have to start leading from the front, okay? I want to talk to you about hiring A talent and where you get these people. You're not gonna, please, when you hire A talent, I want you to think about it like this. Do not just hire bodies, okay? People with no common sense. You grow by hiring A players. That means people, I'm not talking about perfect people. I mean people who can produce, who have common sense, who can operate without you as the owner, those who are a good culture fit. I want people who are like above and beyond, those achievers. Think about it like this. Only one A player, it takes one A player for you to be able to outperform 3 average hires. And that's gonna cause way less friction as your organization grows. There's one thing that's super important when it comes to hiring. Look, hiring slower and becoming more intentional when you hire will save you time than trying to replace the bad hires you made, right? Look, if you find yourself understaffed and you need to hire fast, do it. But also, if you need to fire them, and do it without any form of hesitation, okay? You're not here to make friends, you're here to make money, and everyone that comes to your organization needs to be a fit and needs to add in a positive way. And look, over the years, I've made a lot of mistakes, but I've also become I consider myself a master recruiter. I still make mistakes all the time, but I made some really strong hires over my career. And let me tell you something, after AI came out, you should be using AI, something like ChatGPT, Gemini, to help you create your job ads. Don't do these manually. Don't just write, I'm looking to hire an A player, because that's not gonna work. You need to use these tools that we have, these gifts, that's really what they are, to be able to leverage these platforms and put something super good. I prefer Indeed for hiring. And remember, one thing about hiring A players require the highest compensation structure. There's gonna be no A player that's gonna work for either minimum wage, or another thing is A players don't start out slow. Remember that. I learned that throughout my career. The next topic I want to talk to you about is, I know I'm talking to you about a lot of stuff, but it's important that you follow along, is the compensation plans that are going to outline with the outcome that you actually want, okay? We need to talk about the compensations, because this is where a lot of companies get it wrong. Your compensation plan has to align with the outcome that you want, not just the effort or activity. Look, compensation should reward outcomes, not effort. People do exactly what you pay them for, okay? If you pay for volume, you get volume. If you pay for speed, you get speed. If you pay for quality and margin, you get quality and margin. Does that make sense? You want your pay plans aligned with what actually moves the business forward, such as revenue produced, margins that get protected, quality work that doesn't create callbacks or headaches down the future. If your sales team is paid only on revenue, well, just don't be surprised if later down the road, you look at your margins and it's super thin, right? If your install team is only paid on speed, then of course you're gonna end up having a bunch of quality problems and callbacks and things in that nature. Every compensation plan that you create is gonna also create a behavior, whether you like it or not. Before you roll out your compensation plan, you have to ask yourself one question: what behavior am I rewarding for right now? I'm a huge fan of using bonus and spiff programs to reward excellent work. So for example, if the sales team exceeds a revenue target, they get a spiff on top of their normal commission, right? I pay them more. If the install team does a great work and they don't have any callbacks, I want to give them more money. I want to tell them, hey, you did such a great job. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Keep doing a great job. Here's a little money on the side to reward you and tell you that that's what I appreciate. Look, on the flip side, if we do get a lot of callbacks, what happens is the installers do one or two things. They either go back and fix their problem that they created, or they get a $150 deduction from their pay for the next cycle. We've got to keep everyone accountable for their actions. The best way to do that is through added or subtracted compensation structures, okay? Those are extremely important. The next topic I'm going to talk to you about is a very important one. Most people that are operating a company from under $3 million deal with this. The CEO versus the operator mindset, okay? That one right here is a huge deal. Hear me out. This is where a lot of HVAC company owners get stuck. And at some point, you have to make the decision and figure out, hey, where are you going? Are you going to stay as the owner-operator, or are you going to level up and become the CEO? Okay, operations work in the day-to-day business. These guys, or anyone in operations, what they do is they handle callbacks. They're selling jobs. They're dispatching, fixing problems, putting out fires, and anything that comes up. The CEO on the other end does not do that. What they do is they work on the business. They focus on making the business better, and they don't really focus on running every single part of the business themselves. They got managers that they manage. So if you're still in the day-to-day handling, callback selling, or approving the sale from your sales guys every single job, or trying to fix every issue, growth will always have a cap. So you might grow for a while, but guess what? Eventually, everything's going to bottleneck back to the owner that became the owner-operator, and he never really got out of that seat. And look, it doesn't mean that you're a bad person or anything like that. It's just because the business is built around you. And so you see the difference here is as you step into the CEO role, it's a different direction. The CEO builds leaders. They protect the vision. That means your focus is going to shift from the day-to-day to focus on recruiting high-level leaders, okay? Overseeing the marketing and financials. You build systems so the company can run without you ever being involved in it. And a lot of owners say that they want growth, but at the same time, they don't want to let go of the control, okay? You can't have both. Either you let go of the control, you'll be stuck on the day-to-day forever. If your business does not function when you step out or you step away, hate to tell you, but your business is still a job. This is where delegation comes in. And look, delegation isn't about being lazy. Delegation is about being organized so you can scale. You don't need to delegate to get rid of responsibilities. Instead, you need to delegate so you can focus on the higher level decisions that actually move the business forward. Remember this, listen to me. You must delegate in order for you to elevate, okay? Remember that as you keep scaling. That's very important. The next thing I'm gonna jump into is gonna be another topic that's super important. It's gonna be revenue versus net profits. Let's go over the KPIs that actually matter, because this is where a lot of company owners are getting it wrong. A lot of owners track the wrong numbers, such as vanity metrics that don't matter, like clicks, impressions, total revenue, inbound calls. Just because the phones are ringing and feel busy, that doesn't tell you if the business is making money. A lot of times these calls can be spam, right? Callbacks from previous unhappy clients. Revenue by itself means nothing if you're not keeping profits. I've seen companies do millions and millions of dollars in revenue and still struggle to pay their bills, which is sad. I've also seen smaller companies make more money because they're disciplined with margin and they pay attention to their expenses. Look, here's a false reality. Top line revenue always looks good, but net profit is what keeps your business alive, okay? What actually matters is how effectively you turn leads into profitable installs and turn that into actual profitability. Here's what I like to focus on in my business, like some of the KPIs that really make a difference. Booking rates for your CSR. If your calls aren't being booked correctly, look, the truth is the rest of it is not even going to work out well. The second one is going to be the number of appointments that you receive per day. You need enough at-bats for your sales team to be able to hit the revenue goals, but not so many that the quality is going to drop, right? You need to be able to have a good amount. The next one is going to be calls per appointment ran. If this number gets out of control, the growth becomes super crazy, expensive, super fast. The other one is going to be revenue per appointment ran. This one's super important. Let me explain. This is one of the most important numbers I look at. If you're spending $300 per appointment and I give a sales guy 10 appointments, I need 10x what I spend. So if I spend $3,000, I need to be able to bring back $30,000 in revenue just to make sense of it, okay? The next one's going to be revenue per closer. Basically what I'm tracking is the closing rates. I want to know who's closing at a higher amount, because if I got 3 sales guys and one of them is closing at 70, the other one's at 40, and the other one's at 30, I'm going to prioritize my guy at 70. I mean, you got to be a coach. If one guy's hitting a home run every single time he bats, that's who you want to put back in the business, okay? That's a big factor. And look, you're not going to scale in business on just percentages. You really got to scale on dollars, margin, and outcomes. So if revenue is going up, but profit isn't, there's going to be something broken along those way. And only way that you're going to catch anything that's broken is by tracking your KPIs. That's really going to reveal a story. I want to tell you something as well. Here's one of the reasons why I see HVAC owners that get stuck between that $1 to $3 million. Look, most owners at this level don't build a real management of layers. Instead, they kind of do everything themselves to make every decision, right? They solve problems, they keep everything moving. The problem here is that what works early on, eventually as you become a bigger company, you become the bottleneck. So here's what I would recommend for you to be able to scale. A real management layer system doesn't just mean like adding a title or more payroll just to feel important. It means like clear ownership of the business, someone responsible for your operation, someone accountable for sales, someone owning the day-to-day. And without having these layers, everything comes back to who? The owner. Every time. Every callback, every scheduling issue, what else? Customer complaints, every decision ends up back on our plate as the owner. That slows the business down, and really what it creates is burnout, and it limits how much the company can actually grow. So what happens is when you build a real management layer, decisions are going to get made faster, problems are going to get solved closer to the source, right? And the business can scale without you being involved in everything, because that's just draining. Your job isn't to be the best technician, the best salesperson, the best dispatcher. Your job is to build people who can do this and run the business better than you can. If you don't develop these leaders underneath you, let's just say that the company is only going to grow as fast as you personally can handle it, and there's always a peak. And that's why many HVAC owners stall at that 1 to 3 million, because they don't break through these next levels by getting that right people in place. If you plan early, if you identify your constraints and you build intentionally, 2026 does not have to feel stressful by any means. It might even feel more controlled. That's how real growth happens. Look, if this video helped you in any way, do me a favor. Could you help me out by subscribing? Hit the subscribe button. I plan on creating a lot more content to grow and scale HVAC companies. I'm heading to $10 million in 2026 myself. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you on the next one.